Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Fitness Uncovered podcast, the podcast where we uncover the truths, the lies, the myths of the fitness industry, and apparently also the podcast where we talk bad about fat people.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently.
So, yeah, we don't talk bad about
But hold
fat
on,
people,
haven't been
but
here in a while. It's been
It's been
5 weeks since we recorded an episode.
Quite some
Yeah.
time.
About 2 weeks since we've posted on Instagram. And so you guys probably missed us a little bit, but we're back. A lot has happened since
Yeah,
our last
we've
episode.
actually been doing a lot of stuff together.
We're besties.
A lot
now.
of great things have happened.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have been progressing a lot. We just haven't been actually in the studio recording podcasts, but we're going to talk about all the things that we've been up to, which you guys will get to benefit from.
A lot, by the way.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, very much so. But before we get started, the last time that we recorded the podcast, we made a segment specifically about being overweight or obese, and being healthy at the same time. And during that talk, because I was the one talking mostly in that clip specifically, because we got a clip and we posted it to Instagram. During that clip, I used the word happy and healthy interchangeably. I didn't mean to use the word happy and healthy interchangeably.
But tell them what the whole reel's about first.
Right.
Yeah.
So the reel was about, can you be healthy and be obese at the same time? And what we thought about it, or what I specifically thought about it. And we got, we expected it. We got some backlash for it. We got a lot of people trying to.
Hence why you said this is going to be controversial.
Right, exactly. Which is what I said in that specific clip. I said that this is going to be a controversial thing, and I'm going to probably get some hate for it, which we did. But we also got some people defending us, which was great to see. So I want to talk a little bit more about that, not to spark the fire more, but to clear up exactly what we meant, because there were some comments that I read that I did want to address, because they made some good points. Not necessarily that I thought that it changed my mind, but I wanted to expand a little bit on the subject. And that is defining, let's first define healthy, right? And then we can define happy, and then we can talk about
I like that.
each one.
I like definitions.
So health, I think, is more of a lifestyle. I think some people think it's a point in your life.
What does it mean to be healthy? Then?
Right. What I think it means to be healthy is to have balance, to have a good balance in your life of things that you like to do, things that are good for your body, things that are good for your spirituality, and that can be very different things. I don't want to get into what spirituality means, because we can go into a very, very, very deep wormhole in that. So everybody's spirituality can be different, but what I mean by spirituality is just a connection to yourself, like how connected you are to yourself, how connected you are to the bigger picture, whatever that bigger picture might be for you. So I think that's the balance. That's what I think healthy being. Like somebody that's healthy is somebody that has a good balance of physical fitness, mental health, and also emotional health and spiritual.
I would say it's doing the things that are more likely to produce better outcomes of quality of your life for your life. Yeah.
Yeah.
As in, or also longevity.
Right.
Yeah. Longevity is because you can do something that's good for you tonight, but not good for you tomorrow morning.
Exactly.
Right.
Like, are you setting yourself and your body up to succeed long term? So maybe what you're doing right now, you could be the greatest athlete in the world, but are you going to be able to perform at that level 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? The most likely answer for everybody, even the people that are healthy, is no, but what is the difference, right? So, like, some people are going to drop by 50%. Some people maybe drop by 10%. Like, so what is that ratio of decay that you are working towards?
Which there's a cool word for that we all know from FRC model, which is
Entropy.
Which
Right.
I'm assuming we're going to get to later.
Yeah, we'll talk about entropy later once we get to the ISM. But basically, entropy is just what I was just saying, the decay, right? So like everybody in life, if you don't take care of things, you start losing those abilities, you start losing the health, you start losing anything. Insert word here. So that's, to me, what being healthy is. Setting yourself up to fight against that decay. That decay can be mental, that decay can be physical, that decay can be spiritual, that decay can be emotional, just like we just talked about.
Relational.
Yeah, all of that. So, is somebody that is obese healthy? I mean, I think that the obvious answer is no, because you are not setting yourself up to fight that decay. You are not setting yourself up to be better tomorrow, or at least have a defense system in your body that is going to fight whatever health risks your current situation is posing on your health.
So you're speaking physically healthy?
Physically, right? Because I'm going to also talk about happiness, so I want to leave that for that. So,
well, to be real, dude, it, like straight up, like it increases mortality rate.
right,
As in, like,
and that's not debatable. That's not
Yeah.
something that like you can.
It's not an opinion, it's a fact.
It's not an opinion,
Yeah.
exactly. Like you could right now go and read literature, and if your body fat percentage is over a certain amount, you have certain health risks. And actually, I want to bring up something as well, because there was one comment of somebody. They were actually upset about the video, but they did make one good point, which is unhealthy anorexics. And that is also true, because just like being obese has its health risks, if you don't have enough muscle mass, period, whether
it's
you
just as
are
bad.
obese or whether you are really, really skinny and really like
Weak.
like,
Physically weak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
underweight, you still have those same health risks. So that was a good point by one person that commented on that clip. Now let's talk about, can you be, let's just change it. Can you be unhealthy and be happy? Because now we've defined what health is.
I hate that word though. Happiness.
I know, I hate it too. But I'm going to define it this way, because I'm going to define it the way that I have learned, and this is where the subjective part comes in. This can be subjective. I think that happiness is being content with your current situation and not needing anything outside of your current situation to be sufficient. Does that make sense? So
To feel satisfied.
to be satisfied, right? So
Okay.
your current situation satisfies you entirely, meaning I don't want anything else. I don't need anything else. I wouldn't be better if I had something else. Okay? So if somebody, because this is where I think the controversy comes in. I think that people that are unhealthy have happy days. And then they're like, okay, I'm happy. If you have a good day, of course, everybody, even myself, I've been super physically healthy before and been extremely unhappy. So they're not mutually exclusive. Happiness comes from a lot of different things lining up, in my opinion. And happiness is not something that, like, if you have a good day, you are a happy person. I'm talking about happiness overall. And I kind of think that healthy and happy kind of go together. So, like, if you can be healthy overall, then you're going to be happy in that sense of the word. Not that doesn't mean that if you're unhealthy, you can't have days that are good, that you enjoy with your loved ones, with your friends, that you go to a place that you really enjoy, and then you have a great day and you were happy that day. That's absolutely possible. But I'm talking about general long-term happiness, which is, again, being satisfied with your current situation. And the question that people have to ask themselves is, are you truly satisfied with your current situation if you are that person that is not agreeing with what we're saying? Let's pose this question. Let's say that somebody is overweight. I'm not even going to use the word obese because I don't want to go that far. Somebody's overweight, and there are certain things that you can't do because of your current physical situation. Would it make you more fulfilled to be able to do those things? Let's be more specific. Would you be able, let's say somebody that's older, and you have grandchildren that are active, that want to go out and play and swim and bike and go on hikes and travel and all of these things, but you can't do those things because you're unhealthy, whether you're overweight, obese, maybe something else.
Or weak.
Or weak.
You know, anorexic, you can't
anorexic,
move, you
exactly.
can't expend that
Same
much
thing.
energy. Yeah.
Would changing your physical and health, would changing your physical health make you more fulfilled? If the answer to that question is yes, then I think that you could be
They go
happier.
hand in hand.
Yeah, they go
Yeah.
hand in hand.
I want to make it very, very tangible, because what you're saying, those things don't happen as often. They're like, that's like 10% of your life.
Yeah.
It's your day-to-day life that really matters. It's how much enjoyment are you taking from the 80% of your life that happens every single day. And the more degrees of freedom that you have to do shit with your body, the more things you are able to do. Therefore, the more choices you have as to choose the things that make you give you the most enjoyment out of life. And out of those, you're going to find the one that's the most, and you're going to try to implement it for the most amount of times in your life. And that's how you get the most enjoyment out of life. And so if you decrease the amount of freedom that you have to move within the world and operate within the world, you have less choices.
Yeah.
Therefore, you might not even know the thing that gives you the most joy because you never did it, because you can't.
Yeah.
Because you can't move.
And being complacent does not mean that you're happy. Like being okay with your situation, like just settling, being like, okay, well, I can't do anything about it, so I might as well make the best of it. That to me, I think is exactly what I said. It's settling. It's not going that extra mile. It's not putting in that work. And it's not like there was a person that commented on that clip that talked about it, that they actually went through a journey that they were overweight and they lost a good amount of weight, and it drastically increased their quality of life. And every client that I have helped lose a significant amount of weight has testified that the quality of life increases. So just because you don't know what quality of life you're missing out on doesn't mean that it is not possible. And it is not as hard as people think. Yes, it's very difficult. But the most difficult part is the mental part of it, not the physical part of it. Showing up to the gym and doing the work, all of that stuff, yes, it's difficult, but the hardest part is getting out of your own head and stop fighting this talk that we're talking about right now, and get to the gym or get walking, do whatever it takes. It can be as small as taking a 5-minute walk, making that into a 10-minute walk, making that into a 20-minute walk, and then walking to the gym and getting in the gym, doing a couple of push-ups, doing whatever it is that you can do. It's very relative. Obviously, like if you are somebody that just came out of an injury and all you can do is walk, then that's what you got to do. But that's what you have to do.
Dude, overcoming adversity literally is what drives serotonin to your brain. And serotonin is what regulates your emotions. And if your emotions are more well regulated, you experience joy more. And joy is happiness. I hate the word happiness because I think there are moments of joy and moments of not joy.
Right.
There's other bad emotions.
Exactly.
And the more well regulated you can be emotionally through both of those experiences, the happier you are.
Yeah, and it's a weird word too.
What, happiness? I hate it. It's
because we talked about
it's
this.
very momentary because
Yeah,
it's like, oh, I can be happy one day and I can't be happy the other.
We talked about this in the motivation.
Yeah.
When we talk about motivation.
I like the word joy a lot better because that confines it to the moment,
Right.
the moment of joy. And the more things you have control over, the more moments of joy you can have, obviously, because you have more control over your life. And that also goes hand in hand with taking responsibility. And it all always comes down to responsibility,
Right.
because that's how you give your brain the power to produce more of those emotionally regulating hormones like serotonin.
Right. And there was one thing that actually a client of mine brought up, which is there are some people that are unhealthy that don't have the choice to get healthier. Like they have an illness, a disease, a pathology that they're not in control over. That's a completely different situation
Yeah.
than
You're not in control of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Than being overweight and having the option to get a better lifestyle, be more active, eat better foods, maybe eat less. Sometimes it's even eating a little bit more at the beginning. So it just kind of depends on what situation you're in. But there are options. If you have the options and you're not taking them, you can't just start blaming other people that are trying to help that specific population, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to help this population.
That is why we have a business.
That is why we have this podcast. That is why we're talking here. That's why we all met, because we want to help this specific population and everybody else too, not just this specific population, but we're trying to get this information out to help, not to, because a lot of the words that were used were like fat shaming and all these things, and like the furthest thing that we're trying to do right now is fat shame people. We're trying to shed light on a situation that I think is affecting so many lives and taking so many lives of people that are not educated. And I'm not talking about being like dumb. I'm talking about just not educated on the subject.
Yeah, because they don't know what
the
they don't
direction.
know.
Right. They don't know what direction they need to go in. They don't know what steps they need to take. So just understanding that there are certain steps that need to take, and like I think that people just get intimidated by like, I want to be that, right? And they're looking at that long-term picture, and that seems impossible. And of course, that's going to be so demoralizing. That's going to be like, I can't get there because that's way too far. I have to lose 100 pounds. I can't even lose 5. Like that's so difficult. So that's where your short-term and long-term goals come into play. And small dividends pay off at the end, just like investments. So taking it one bite at a time is absolutely key when it comes to making progress, especially if you're in that situation where you have to lose a lot of weight or if you have to gain a lot of muscle, same thing. Taking it one step at a time, having those short-term goals, and not trying to tackle the whole thing at once and not getting defensive about it. I think that you are your own worst enemy when it comes to this.
It's also the humility of saying, I don't know how to do this.
Yes.
Let me get help from someone that their job is to make me do this, because they'll tell me exactly the process that I have to go through.
Yeah.
And shedding the light on yourself, on you not being able to do something because you don't know how to, sometimes kind of hard for people.
Yeah. I think the other part, and we'll move on from this, is our body types. People don't relate. The people that are in that situation, they don't relate with us because we have a very different body type.
Well,
right?
I can speak on that. I am not that kind of person that can eat whatever I want and not gain weight. That's not me. I have to control the amount of calories that I eat on a daily basis. I have to be exercising almost on a daily basis to maintain what I have gained. I have been 30 pounds overweight. I have been at that point, and I have lost 30 plus pounds in my life before. It's just that people are just seeing how we look now, but they don't see our journey from the past.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been on both sides. I've been skinny to getting overweight, and overweight back to being skinny or at a maybe a little bit more muscle than before. So it's unfair for them to say that of us because they don't know who we are.
Right. They don't know. All of our journeys have been different. All of our genetics are different. Mm-hmm. Everything that we've done, our training experience, it's all different. But one thing that is true is we've all trained people that have wanted to lose weight, that have wanted to gain muscle, that have wanted to move better, that have wanted to feel better. And I'm pretty sure that all of us have had success with that, helping these people. And it's not because we're fat shaming them. It's because we're trying to help them, and we're trying to help them with results, with result-based approaches, things that work. And what doesn't work is denying that there's an issue. Mm-hmm. And that goes for everything. The first step with anything in life, if you want to improve at something, if you want to be successful, is identifying the problem. Yeah.
Admit to yourself that is a problem, and it's your responsibility to fix it.
It's up to you, and you can absolutely take the steps. I'm sorry to be so harsh about it, but it absolutely can be done. All you have to do is take that first step. That first step is the hardest one. And you know what that step is? It's not even working out. It's reaching out to someone. It's reaching out to someone, and I'm talking in general right now. This can be applied to anything.
Anything.
Not about. I'm not even gonna make this about being overweight. The first step in solving a problem, especially one that you don't know how to fix, is getting help.
And there's always a solution.
There's always.
I hate when people say, "I've tried it all." I don't think you have. There's always a different solution. Not everyone is the same. So whatever worked for your friend might not work for you. So yeah, always reach out for help, because some person, maybe one of us, can help you out with that.
Mm-hmm. I also think with what you said with I've tried it all, unfortunately, I think a lot of people have tried a lot of things, but those things are the quick
fixes.
Quick fixes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which,
Might
sorry
work,
to break it to you,
But those tend to be the ones
they
that
tend to be very unsustainable. So all of them work. All of the quick fixes work in terms of like, can you get results from those diets? Yes.
Short term, but not long term.
Exactly. Can you sustain it? Like, do you want results and drop weight for one day and keep that weight for one day and then start gaining it back? Or do you want to build a lifestyle that will allow you to stay at the body type, feeling, emotion, energy, strength for X amount of years, lifetime? That is what I think most people want. I just don't think people understand that the way to get there is not a fast way. It can be. It's faster than you think.
But even if it's fast or slow, it's a journey anyways. It's a choice of a lifestyle that you have to partake for the rest of your life. It's not like you do it for 3 months and then you're back to doing what you do before. No, if you want to really keep the weight down or keep the weight up or stay strong, or you have to continue to do what got you there.
Let me ask you this. When was the last time in your life that you spent over 1 or 2 months without training in a row?
I don't know, 15 years ago?
How about you?
Definitely over a decade.
Same.
Yeah.
Almost 8 years.
Yeah. So, almost since I started.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the most that I've ever gone without working out since then is 2 weeks.
For me, it's like about a month.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
That's the point.
And
point
it's
made.
and it's about, so like exactly what he said. There's a quote, and it's the destination is not what brings you. Again, back to the word. I'm sorry, but the destination is not what brings you the happiness. It's the journey. You have to fall in love with the journey, and then the goals that you want, the accomplishments, they happen by themselves.
It's not about what you get; it's about who you become in the process.
Exactly. Exactly. So if you become this person that is not following a program, that's not following a diet, but you are a person that lives a healthy lifestyle. So I'm not even going to say that you're a healthy person. You're a person that lives a healthy lifestyle. Those goals that you're talking about, the fat loss, the muscle gain, the strength gains, the movement improvement, all of those things, they just happen by themselves because you are living that lifestyle that leads to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I want to say about that.
Cool. Great intro, bro. Lighter topic. Let's get into the back end of Fitness Uncovered. What has been
Yes.
happening the past month?
The good stuff.
Usually we have an iPad here with a little script guiding us on what to say and what not. Today we're just going off the dome, as in we're just going to tell you guys what happened
Yeah.
the past month, which has been a lot of cool stuff.
I'm actually excited for this one.
Dude, this is gonna
the
be
first
fun.
time we're doing this.
We should start the story on the way to the airport to Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
First of all, we get there. He's late. He has my ticket. And so I can't get in the airport. Like him and his fiance go in. Did you guys go in? Or you guys waited for us?
No, we waited
You
for you.
us? Yeah. Already started on a bad foot that night.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they waited. Yeah, they waited.
No,
How
but
long
that's-
did you have to wait? Like half an hour? I think half an hour.
It was a little
right?
bit more.
A little bit more
Yeah.
than half an hour. Yeah.
But besides the point, we get in, everything's okay. You know, we get to our gate. They delay our flight. About 1 hour, 2 hours?
Mhm.
Yeah. So we got there pretty freaking late. But what seat did you get?
I think it was like 12.
What seat did you get?
13.
They put me on 32F.
But I'll say this. I gave you the option because I asked this.
Yeah, but I'm a
man.
cheap asshole. I'm not gonna.
Because me and my wife, obviously, I mean, we travel sometimes, so I chose our seats. I paid, I think it was like $20 or something like that to get assigned seats. I texted this man and I was like, hey, Nick, do you want me to buy your seat? And he's like, no, I don't care.
Yeah, but I don't care. Doesn't mean I know they're gonna put me on 32F, dude. There were two.
You were smelling all the farts from the
Dude,
airplane.
I'm sorry to bring this topic up, but there were two people that were bigger than me to my left. And I couldn't get out because they were both sleeping. It was in the middle of the night because it's like that way.
Yeah, it was a red eye.
Yeah. So we got there, like 1 a.m.?
1 a.m.
Yeah. And I had played soccer the night before with my friends here.
And 1 a.m. was 3 a.m. here.
Correct. Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
time-
And the
time.
we were supposed to leave at around 7. We ended up leaving around 9.
Mhm.
And I just sat for 5 hours with my knees squished after playing soccer. My shit was sore as
Yeah.
fuck. I hated it. It was a terrible flight. Never again. I'm always choosing I don't care. I'm
Yeah.
choosing every single time.
That's why I chose it,
The
dude.
way back was gorgeous. He got us some amazing exit row seats.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I got you. I got
It
you.
was great.
I got you.
I just wanted to point that out. The flight was a miserable flight on the way there. Yeah. Thanks.
But then let's continue that. So we get there. We're starving because there was nothing
We
on the
hit
airplane.
some IHOP.
It was
that
so good.
slapped so hard.
At 1 in the morning, 1:30, we were all dead.
Nobody can deny to me that breakfast food is best in the middle of the night.
Oh yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
better than actual breakfast time.
It's the best.
I love pancakes.
I got some chicken
At
and
any
waffles.
time.
It was great.
Yeah.
And then we
Chicken-
get to the Airbnb, and we must say the Airbnb was in quite a quite an interesting area of Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yeah.
We'll get to the part of what you witnessed in the end of the last
The
night.
last night. Were
Yeah.
you there that night? Yeah, because
Yeah,
No, he
we
was.
were
He was
there.
like,
I was
bro, he was
there.
freaking
I
out.
was freaking out. I was like, I'm gonna go check downstairs if he's fighting or something, like,
We'll get there.
because I knew you went outside, so like
Yeah.
all of a sudden I start hearing all this noise, and I'm like, Oh God.
Andres.
Oh my God.
On the what was it, the third night that we were there?
That was the third night.
He went outside to take a phone call, and out of nowhere, we start hearing like,
Just commotion.
yeah, and we're like, what the hell's going on outside? And then he flies down because I'm sleeping on the couch, obviously, because fuck me the whole trip.
He made all his own decisions,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so I hear it too, and me and Jose look at each other like, it's like, Andres okay? Like, what's going on outside? And then he storms in. He's like, dude, there's a brawl going on.
I literally was outside just talking to my client, and I start hearing these. At first, I thought it was just like friends coming back from a party, just like being loud, and then I just see other friends separating them, and I'm like, what is going on? And they're just like in the middle of the neighborhood, just like yelling at each other, going at it, like having to be held back. I'm just like, I think I'm gonna, I gotta go, man. I'll call you back tomorrow.
Very interesting and funny evening.
Yeah.
And that was right before they were supposed to leave too.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
like-
it was the night we were supposed to wake up at 5 in the morning.
Yeah,
to leave.
well, like 4 actually.
Or 4, yeah.
Yeah, because Jose and his fiance
And-
stayed one less day than we did.
Yeah, which was super worth it because we hiked a super cool place the day that they left on Monday. That
But
day
they had already hiked. So
Yeah.
let's go into that. So the first day that we were there. So obviously after IHOP we went home.
This
and
was, by the way, this was Thursday. Our seminar was Saturday and Sunday.
Right?
So we had a whole day on Friday to do whatever the hell we wanted, which was very interesting.
We chose very well.
Yeah, it was amazing. Props to Marisol.
Yeah,
also.
absolutely.
Props to Jose's fiance for choosing that.
TikTok helps a lot.
Yeah, she's great at that.
You know what is so crazy? After we came back, I started getting just like a ton of videos on my feed, Instagram,
About
and
Phoenix?
TikTok about Phoenix,
too.
and I'm like, why couldn't this happen before? Like now, and there were so many places right around Scottsdale that I would have wanted to visit.
Yeah.
That I'm like, why couldn't this
Yeah.
algorithm happen earlier? Come on, Instagram, get with the program.
Instagram should start listening to us speak without us
Yeah.
wanting to.
I think it already do, but
That would be good,
anyway.
yeah.
So okay, the next day we ended up going to what was it called? Wet Beaver.
The
Creek?
crack.
Wet Beaver Creek.
Wet
Wet
Beaver
Beaver
Creek.
Creek.
Yeah,
It's a little bit outside of.
it's like an hour and a half.
Yeah, it was an hour and a
Phoenix.
half.
Yeah, it's northeast of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in the middle of the mountains.
I think
So
it's called-
much.
I think it's close to Sedona.
Yeah.
It's close to Sedona.
Yeah, and it's so much in the middle of the mountains that we saw snow.
Well, I did not expect to see
In the
snow when I
middle
went to
of, in the
desert.
beginning of March, in Arizona, we saw snow. I was not expecting that
Me
either.
neither.
Yeah, and it was not a lot of snow. It was just like the leftovers on the side of the road and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But on the hike, you could see a little bit of an.
Yeah.
Feet. We kind of cleaned our feet on
Yeah,
the device.
that's what we used to clean our feet.
Yeah, because the hike was in like a dirty, like
Mud.
It was
mud,
the
muddy
red,
place, yeah.
the red rock, muddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of beautiful to see the red and the snow
And the
put
blue
together.
and the green, because
Yeah.
it was amazing. I think so. Yeah, Wet Beaver Creek. We went to this hike, beautiful hike,
Yeah.
amazing scenery, easy hike to do, by the way. So
Yeah,
if
it's
you're
very
ever
flat.
in
It's
that
more
area,
like nature
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like really climbing.
yeah,
anything.
it's not too crazy. You know, I think go early.
Go earlier than we did.
Go earlier than we did so you can finish it. We weren't able to go all the way to the end of the hike. We had to turn around because we were losing daylight. And we also had an interesting
I knew you were
experience.
gonna say that. Yeah. So what was it like halfway through, a little bit more?
I think it was like 3/4 of the way.
3/4 of the way through the hike, we see some people coming back from the hike they went earlier, and they all have either their shoes off or their feet are wet. And so we're like, oh shit.
And they were all wearing like wading, is that how you say it? Wading pants? Wading?
Like the actual hiking shit.
yeah,
Like hiking equipment.
WADE, wade. You know,
I don't know
what
what
that is?
that
That's
is.
like what
Yeah.
where wading pants are pants that are like
Yeah.
you
Sorry,
are able
I'm-
to walk through water.
I have no idea of all this hiking attire because since we're here in Florida,
Yeah.
Dude, we're like
We
all,
don't-
we're
we
all
don't-
immigrants.
yeah,
I
we
just watch a lot of
I
like,
never been
love it.
hiking to a place like that before, so
Yeah.
I didn't know what was the proper attire. We just went with shorts and a t-shirt.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which
So here's the
was
deal.
actually the perfect thing to go with.
Yeah.
It was great. It's just that there was ice, which was in the top of the mountain, and it got warm in the middle of the
Day.
the day, and the ice melts. And what happens when ice melts? It turns into
A
Water.
creek or a river or
a
a stream.
very fast stream of a lot of water up to half of our shins, in very pointy and slippery, rocky terrain.
Yeah.
Which we had to cross twice.
We had the option. We came up to this place where and so
Yeah, but dude, like we could not go through the river, but it's like I already made it to Phoenix,
that.
Arizona, sitting on 32F. Like, why the hell am I not gonna like? Let's do it a little bit more. So it's like let's
let's
just go.
backtrack because you talked about those people that were. So we came across those people that were coming our way. They were coming back. They were coming out of the hike, and they were telling us like, "Hey, just so you guys know, there's going to be a water crossing. So if you want to get to the end of the hike, you're going to have to get wet. So we're already thinking like, we don't know if we're going to do it. Okay.
Also,
like,
melted ice. Cold.
really cold. Yeah. Very
It's
cold.
not cold. It's freezing.
Freezing. Yeah.
Like to the point where we couldn't feel our feet when we crossed.
Yeah.
So we got to this place, to the water crossing. We look at it and we're like, I have no idea how deep this is, because since it's going through mud, it's not clear. It's just muddy water, freezing muddy water. We didn't know how deep it was. So
We started throwing rocks.
we started throwing rocks to see how deep.
But not like rocks, like little
Rocks,
ones.
like big ones.
Rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes like,
And
like,
they
just
go
disappear.
down. They
We're like,
disappear into it.
shit.
So we were like, all right, whatever. You know what? Let's take the risk, because we really wanted to see. We really wanted to go ahead and do it. And actually, I think it was you.
Yeah, I
actually,
took off
you
my
started
shoes.
taking your shoes off, and that's when I was like, damn it, we're gonna have to do it.
It's happening.
It's happening.
It's
And
happening.
then we found a stick.
Yeah,
Remember the whole stick thing? We were like, okay, if we can't see the depth with
we
rocks,
can touch it.
maybe we can touch it with a stick. And so we try to find the biggest stick nearby that we could use, and we literally use this like a hiking pole, to, like measure
Yeah.
what it is. And he did it first. He was the leader of the pack. The dinosaur, the oldest man in the group, led us.
The dad.
He led us not astray. He led us in the direction of success.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we crossed it, but I did say it while we were crossing it. I was like, if it's this deep now, and it's warm, and we take a while, it's probably gonna be deeper when we come back. But we were like, yeah.
Fuck it.
We're all the way. We're all the way in Arizona in 32F.
So at this point, we're all
We're
thinking
like,
like we're gonna need helicopters to come get us. Like we're gonna
Yeah.
need the rangers to come save us. Some bear is gonna eat us.
I even had already put in my mind, like, if we're gonna have to cross this again, we're probably gonna have to take our clothes off. And cross it with our clothes off above our head, and then put them back on. Because what we did was we took our shoes off.
And keep in mind, this is the middle of the desert. So as soon as the sun starts coming down,
it's
it gets cold.
freezing. Yeah.
It would probably
temperature
topped out at
changes.
what, like 78, 79 degrees.
Not even.
But like
Like
during the
high?
day, yeah.
I think it was
It's
like
like
60s.
Oh really?
it
It
was
was
in
like
the
high 60s.
60s.
But it felt warmer than here. Well, I guess Florida's just weird.
Yeah, it was sunny.
Yeah,
So like
it
when
was
you get
sunny.
the sun on you and you're walking all day,
It's
like
facts.
you don't.
Yeah.
So that, it was
But
perfect.
dude, the night time was like 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, like as
It
soon
was
as it
cold.
drops night, it drops down to like 40s at least.
Yeah.
And
it was
so
very cold.
40s degree outside, and then with cold water everywhere in your body, that doesn't sound like a great experience to me.
Yeah. But it was totally worth it. It was totally worth it.
Yeah, we made it
crossed that river.
pretty close to the Red Rocks.
And I'm so glad we crossed that river, because the whole hike after that river was completely different.
Yeah,
There was
that's
it
facts.
was more in the valley. You're more like right up against the side of the mountain. You can really see
Caves
the
and stuff like that,
caves.
yeah.
and-
By the way,
and
if you do want to
landscape.
see what all that looks like, it's still up in our story. There's a
Yeah.
highlight, I believe, of everything that we saw there. So there's a lot of stuff there that we all posted.
Yeah, and if I don't have a highlight of my story, I'll make one. Right
I do.
after this
I have
podcast.
a bunch
Yeah.
on my personal Instagram
So
too.
yeah, definitely, and we
but
have pictures too.
I took picture with cacti.
Yes,
Cacti.
he was so excited
Dude,
about the cactuses.
That shit was crazy. I was thinking about that.
Cacti.
Yeah, I was so like I had that in my mind. It's like, am I going to see a cactus?
we saw
And it's like
plenty.
we saw like millions.
millions.
You-
Yeah.
Really, that's what you thought? You're gonna
Dude,
go to
I don't know,
Arizona
like,
and be like, am I really gonna see a cat?
I don't know how common they are. I don't know if it's like one of the things that it's like in movies that it's like, oh, you just see like once every.
No,
It's a
they
different
were
world.
everywhere. They were in the city.
Yeah.
There's cactuses just like in the sidewalk.
We probably
Yeah.
sound so weird to people because to me, I felt like I was in Mars.
Dude, that's crazy, right?
Because the landscape is so different. It's
This
red.
is how people think of Florida people. Like
Yeah, they think we're weird like
Florida
that.
people.
Yeah, yeah. Florida's like the weirdest state in the country. We just think it's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a great hike. Highly recommended if you go to Arizona, Wet Beaver Creek. Easy hike, beautiful scenery, landscape. Again, I think most people could do it. Even kids. I think
Yeah.
if you want to take your kids, beautiful.
Yeah, the thing is, we were supposed to reach the crack.
The crab.
where
Right, the
there was gonna
very-
be a little lagoon, cake, or lake.
Yeah, it was a creek.
It was a little the little creek, and you could just throw yourself from a rock and go into the water and stuff
Yeah,
like
which
that.
was probably
Which
gonna
would have
be
been
freezing.
it would be freezing. We have not
Done it
been able to
anyways.
get in
Yeah.
unless
But the name of the place
we
is.
wanted to freeze. But it wouldn't look. I'm pretty sure it's a good spot to go in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
so we
just
will definitely
the name of the
return at some
place
point.
is the Crack.
The Crack.
Crack.
So we
Yeah.
almost made it to the Crack.
Yeah, because there's two trails from the Wet Beaver Creek actual trail. There's the Crack, and then I forgot what the other one was, but
We chose the
wanted
Crack.
to. Yeah, of course we
Yeah.
chose the Crack because who doesn't want to go to the Crack?
Especially,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And so we didn't make it, and then we turned around, and then we crossed the lake again,
Which
or
was
the little
worse
stream again,
on the,
which
on
was
the way
worse.
back
It was colder and more
And
deeper and faster.
and faster.
Yeah, and we had to use more sticks. But actually, I think this time, me and you were the first ones to cross.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we took the leadership on the way back.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I'm doing this. I got my shoes off, done. Because I also, what I wanted, and the reason why I wanted to get back and cross, I wanted a little bit of sunlight to hit my feet after I got out of that water. Because if no sunlight hit my feet after I got out of that water,
That
it
would've
would
been
have
tough.
been it would have been bad.
That would've
Yeah,
been tough.
after I got out of the water on the second time, I did not feel my toes for a good couple
Yeah, you
minutes.
actually kept your
Yeah,
shoes
and
off
I kept
for
my
a
shoes
while.
off for a while.
Oh yeah, he practices.
I went barefoot
Yeah, he
for
went
like
barefoot.
the next 30 minutes
Yeah.
walking.
That sounds like Jose.
Yeah. We have videos of that too.
Yeah, yeah, nice. And so, well, we made it back.
Yeah.
Made it back safely.
So that was a great hike.
Yeah, it was a great day.
What did we do that day?
we
was
went
that the burger
to-
day? No.
We went to. Was it the brewery that Marcel wanted to go to?
So after that, we went to the brewery.
Yeah,
But it was
we
freezing.
sat
It was-
outside
it
and you
was so
froze your balls off.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that was terrible.
I couldn't enjoy my food that
Me
day
neither.
because it was so cold that by the time they put the food on
was
the
already
table,
cold.
it was too cold.
It
Yeah,
was
it's
freezing.
crazy. Like,
But
the
it was
discrepancy
delicious.
in,
And the reason we
temperature.
weren't able to sit inside is because they had an event inside. or
Yeah, they
something
had like
that.
a what is it that happens in the weddings before weddings? Rehearsal dinner.
A rehearsal
Yeah.
dinner. Yeah. So we weren't able to sit inside. We didn't enjoy that dinner. But
Yeah, but it's all good because the day after is the day of our first day of the seminar. So
Yeah.
me and him were very excited
yeah.
because he already took that same certification about
Right.
a year and a half ago, but it's time for us to catch up. And those
What certification is this, Nick?
functional range system, internal strength model. The thing that's probably going to guide us the most following up from here in our training with our clients,
Absolutely.
simply because it's the only certification that covers everything. Every part of your
Yeah.
body.
I could, and what he means is like there are holes, there are missing, and we were going to talk about
What
this
that
a lot
means,
more.
yeah.
There are missing things, missing aspects in the current standard model of training, which is why a lot of people get injured, why a lot of people hit plateaus, why a lot of people, hit just pain,
There are
discomfort.
trainable qualities and trainable tissues that we are simply not targeting.
Exactly.
With the traditional
With
model.
the traditional
right?
model, yeah,
Mhm.
that's right.
Yeah.
And the system the system teaches a framework as to how to implement these new concepts and these new to train the things that were untrainable beforehand into something that makes sense and it's coherent and you can actually program with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get into it.
Yeah. So while they went to their seminar, and I actually wanted to go. Like if they would allow me to go there, I would have.
Didn't you ask and they said like half price? or
I had
something?
asked, no, but not for this one. I had asked for a previous certification if I could. I had already taken it, and I had a friend of mine that was going to take it, and I had emailed them if I could go, even though I'm already certified. And
Is
they
that
were
FRC?
like, FRC, yeah. And they were like, well, you can do half the money. And I was like,
Nah.
no.
But then we realized you could have gone. Nobody checked anything.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I still had my great experience with
He was so- yeah.
Andres' wife and my fiance. We then went to a hike ourselves.
Don't forget my non-existent girlfriend.
And you're not.
The cactus.
So we ended up going to what's called Camelback Mountain in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Sick.
Yeah. And I did not expect it to be what it was. I thought it was going to be another like little nature trail or whatever going up the mountain. Goodness gracious. That was more like rock climbing.
And they didn't tell us this on purpose. They hid this from us.
And we went on Monday, and we get there, and we're like, oh, this is cool. Like, the first few meters of it are not that bad.
Yeah, you can't see. But before you even go into that, they came back. So they picked us up. They went to this hike. They did this hike. It's not a long hike, but it is
It's
a
intense.
tedious and intense hike.
Yeah.
And it's not even a hike. I think what they call it is a scramble.
Freaking climb, man.
It's
like we're literally climbing
in
the
between
mountain.
a hike and a climb. But so they went and they picked us up and they were like, we want to go to the gym. And we actually went.
I was
and
gym.
gassed out.
Went to
I
the
was like,
gym.
okay, we're going to the gym. I didn't understand what they were doing the whole day.
They were just trying to like trick us into thinking it was an easy hike.
Yeah, it was fine.
It's like, oh, that's fine. Let's go to the gym.
But it was great. It was a great gym session. Actually,
was awesome, yeah.
I benefited a lot.
We,
from
by the way,
gym
found
session.
a Crunch Fitness, which is not ideal, but Crunch Fitness always come in clutch when you're traveling
Yeah.
because they're cheap and they
They
have
have what you need.
they all
They
pretty much have the
everything,
same
yeah.
thing.
They have
every
platforms
place.
and stuff like that.
And we made it to the gym just in time for them to close, and we finished exactly as they were closing. It was perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
And we had just gone through the seminar too, so it was already like testing shit out and like grabbing dumbbells and bands. I was like, oh my god, this is sick.
Whatever programming you guys had that day was
Oh, dude, I didn't.
Done.
I
That's it.
forgot you were
you
programming for
forgot.
me.
Yeah.
I was just playing around.
Yeah, I know you. I know.
Yeah.
I think I still followed. Did I follow? No, I think I just did. What did I do?
You did.
I did Marisol's
American-
You did
program.
the Marisol's program.
Yeah, I did my Marisol's program.
Yeah.
But so what did we do that night? I forget.
Is that when we went to downtown? Oh no, that's when they cooked, right?
Yeah.
That is
so
when they.
so
oh
after
my
yeah so
God, those
after a hike
carnitas were so fire.
yeah after our hike, the girls were starving. That was intense because we had to stop a few times and we rested for like 10 minutes to keep climbing. On the way down, the girls are like, "We're starving," and Marisol is like, "Let's make some tacos," and Ana is like, "Oh, I'll make some fire tacos." And Marisol is like, "Oh, I'll do like my little carne, mechada or whatever," and I'm like, oh, "Thank God." Because that means we're gonna get something cheap and we have to spend so much money. I was like, oh, thank
And
God.
it's gonna be good.
And it's gonna be good.
And it's
So,
gonna be plentiful as well
Yeah.
because we had leftovers
yeah,
that we got to eat.
Well, I that's what most of it.
yeah.
Yeah, well, you're Nick, so
So I went to Walmart, got all the stuff, came back, and then went to pick you guys up, and then they cooked.
yeah,
It was
and
awesome.
really,
It was delicious. And we
delicious.
watched the UFC fight.
Fire. Oh
Well,
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that
John
is
Jones
what we
fight.
did.
We saw
John
it.
Jones.
John Jones
dominated.
dominated.
I wish it would have lasted a little bit longer though. I will say that. I was expecting like a
I wanted
fiery
like a
fight,
knockout, like a punch or a kick that the guy was unconscious.
but no, it was just very.
It was
quick.
just too dominant.
Yeah. Short and sweet.
It was like
Yeah.
45-second fight or something like that.
I was so underwhelmed.
Yeah, yeah.
The food was gas though.
But congratulations to John Jones, and now he has an opportunity to defend that belt. It's heavyweight. Yeah. You lost. You bet on
No,
Cyril.
I bet that he would knock him out. Not.
Oh, okay.
Oh, damn,
okay.
that sucks.
I was like, what? So yeah, great day, amazing day. Saturday was beautiful.
Yeah.
Sunday.
And I was so excited the whole day to you guys to get out of the certification.
Oh yeah. Do you want to explain why?
Because when I took the certification, I was the first in the first group of people that took that certification.
Ever
When did you
in the
take
world.
that for the
And I took it in November
21.
2021. Yeah, so it was the first ever certification course
for internal strength?
for
model.
internal strength model. And I got out of there so overwhelmed and so excited about the things that I learned, because the information that I learned was something I never learned anywhere else. But I couldn't speak to anyone about it. Like if I speak to someone, even a trainer, they would be like, "What the hell are you talking about? I don't know what you're speaking of. I don't know what you mean by connective tissue joint. I don't know what you're talking about." Like, oh, that we've been doing everything wrong, that we're hurting people, the way that we're training people. Yeah. So I had to speak to my girlfriend about this.
I'm sure she
And I was-
enjoyed.
and I
Thought it
was-
was
and-
lovely.
And good thing that she loves me, because she listened to me. But you can tell that she was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, so for over a year, I have felt very lonely with the knowledge that I had gained. And finally, two of the people that I'm closest with were like, "We're going to go take this shit." And I was like, fuck yes. Now I can vent to these people and speak and have a conversation that I can never have with anyone else.
Originally, this trip was supposed to be just Nick and I, and then we ended up.
Wasn't it
making
your wife that made it like the
Yeah,
whole thing?
she wanted to go, so we were like, let's just might as well go, all of us.
Yeah.
And I
6
think
of us.
Jose got so excited when that happened because he was like, I'm gonna get to pick them up.
When I get to drop them off and I get to pick them up and we can talk about
I
it.
remember as soon as Jose dropped us off at the seminar the first day, me and him held hands and we skipped inside. Like two kids going inside the class.
No shame. No shame.
As soon as they entered the car after the seminar, they were like, "Bro, what the fuck?"
It's almost like, where do I start? Like,
Yeah,
where do I start?
And
There's
this,
so
by the way,
much.
this is half.
One
This
day.
is the first day.
And these are concepts, most of the first day are concepts that we already had learned, and it just expanded on.
Yeah, that's true.
from the previous certification, because by the way, this is the
A system.
Yeah, it's a system, and FRC, functional range conditioning, is a
Segments.
very small part of the internal strength model.
Right.
So we were all sort of, that's why we all kind of got together in the first place.
Because you got to understand, like, the system of training is not like everybody has it. So when we see another person in the gym that's doing the movements that we do, we're like, you're one of us.
Yeah. That's happened to me so much.
Yo.
So because we have a few practitioners of FRC in our hometown, we've trained some people around here. So sometimes I'll walk into the gym that I'm going to, and I'll see some people doing some things, and I'm like, either Jose or Nick trained you at some point. Because you look like you know more than the trainers here. So
Right.
there's something that you're definitely one of us.
Or at least you were coached by one of us.
Yes,
Yeah.
or you took the certification or whatever, but
Yeah.
most likely you were coached by one of us, because I don't know I've actually looked up practitioners around us, and we're
There's
pretty
very
much,
few. In Broward
yeah.
County, there's very few.
Yeah, there's very
and
few.
the ones that do
many?
have it are they're usually not trainers. They're usually either chiros or
Therapists,
PTs.
yeah.
Yeah. There's very few trainers that have it. Really.
Well, yeah, most of the time that I've gone to the certifications, I'm one of the few trainers. Most of the time it's a massage
Not only-
therapist or a chiro
and even if
or
it is a
physical
trainer,
therapist.
very unlikely that it's a strength coach.
Yeah.
It's like we have a lot of jujitsu guys that go. There's a lot of
Mhm.
like sport specific like skill coaches that go to understand more about the human body. Very unlikely that it's like a trainer, like
Mhm.
a trainer.
Yeah. We'll talk more about all this certification because we still haven't finished the trip.
That's right. We have 2 more days.
Yeah, we have 2 more days. So,
What did you guys do Sunday?
yeah, what did you guys do?
Mall?
Well,
Go
Sunday
shopping?
we dropped you guys off, and then we ate breakfast at the.
Fire breakfast at the place that we
Yeah.
had.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
what
I had-
what was it?
Black Rifle.
Black Rifle Coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was delicious, and then after that we went to the downtown.
And you guys went to
And
some
we-
other coffee place,
It went
right?
to a coffee place. It's called Badass Coffee.
Yeah,
uh,
my wife
it
won't
was-
stop talking about it.
Delicious coffee, and we just walked around the place. We went bowling.
Oh, that's-
That was pretty much it. And then we just sat
Kinda
down
just
and we
chilled.
talked. We just chilled. We had lunch as well. So, and then we picked you guys up.
Yeah.
And then we took you guys to downtown as well.
Yeah.
And night-
That night
yeah.
was a good dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walked right in front of the Suns Arena in the
Mhm.
middle of the downtown area.
Mhm.
Yeah, right after Kevin Durant got traded.
Did we
It's
get
such
some
a-
cookies that night too? We got some crumble cookies, right?
No, it wasn't
No, it
crumble.
wasn't crumble.
Was it smash? Smash?
Something.
I just remember the word smash. I don't know why.
Yeah. But we got burgers that night, right?
Did we?
We got that night we did
No, it was the pizza.
No, bro. It's
pizza.
pizza. Yeah.
Yes, the buffalo pizza.
Oh,
there
there was a live music guy playing country music. I thought it was sick. I love country music, depending on the occasion. That sounded like the occasion.
Yeah.
I enjoyed myself a lot. Yeah.
The burger was the night that we
Didn't
it was
enjoy.
cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Then the pizza was
Great,
Sunday
great
night.
evening. At that point, we were like, me and him were brain dead.
Yeah, because it was
from-
so much information. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was amazing information, but it's just so
Much for so little time.
yeah, it's
and
so
like
compact.
and very little sleep in between
mm-hmm.
because obviously like we're traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's only so much we can recover from mentally.
Yeah.
And so by at least me personally, by the end of the second day, I was like, give me a break, like enough.
Yeah.
I mean, like let us digest a little bit. When I get home, I'm like, I'm gonna get cooking, which
Because
is
not-
exactly what
not
it is.
only-
That ain't plus you're questioning your career. I question my career.
Absolutely. I question
Yeah.
everything
I
that I was doing.
question
I'm like,
everything I was
how?
doing.
Because then it's easier once you get in front of a computer and actually start programming. Because when you have all
It's
of that
immediately where I
information
went to.
just simmering in your brain, you start trying to compare the programs that you've already written, and then how am I going to implement this into those programs? And
Ends
blah,
up being like almost like an artistic thing, as in like an artist try to paint something. It's like you just learn like this new crazy technique to paint a canvas, and it's like, holy shit, the thing that I was doing before kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but one, I think that we've both programmed now for a month using ISM.
Yeah, and with
And
a lot of people.
it's gotten a lot. I think it makes. I mean, now it's actually. I think it's easier to program ISM than it was to program the traditional model.
I agree.
Because it's we'll talk about it a little bit more, but it has its structure. So, then Sunday night.
The fight.
The fight. Or we were not involved in the fight, but that's when the fight happened. And they were already trying to go to sleep because they had a 6
we had
a.m. flight
Yeah,
the
6
next
a.m.
day
flight.
back here, and we were gonna stay one more day. So on that next day, we Nick and I, by the way, my wife was like, "Oh, you guys need to go to Camelback Mountain tomorrow. It's
Like it was
amazing.
nothing.
Yeah, you guys should go. I'm not gonna go with you guys. I'm gonna go to a museum, but you guys need to go. You enjoy yourself." So she went and
She
dropped
was
us
right
off.
because the view from up there was totally worth it.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't a bad trick, but I think that they left some things out on purpose.
It wasn't my idea. It was the girl's idea.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. So let's talk about
Ratting
that,
them
bro.
out.
I thought the guys stuck
ratting them
together.
out.
Damn.
So they had already done this hike. Nick and I show. My wife drops us off. We have breakfast that day. My wife goes and drops us off.
Thank goodness we went in shorts.
Yes. Thank goodness. She drops us off. It's this mountain from. I mean, you can't really see what the hike is gonna be like when you get there because you're just looking at one side of the mountain. But as soon as you go around the first hill and bend around, you find yourself across this just boulder, like steep hill of boulders that you can't walk up. There's actually a rail in the middle so that you can hold on to it as you scramble on your way up. And that's just the very first one and the easiest one to get through. Because after it's so steep that you can't see the next climb because the whatever's in front of you is blocking that next climb.
So you just get a bunch of surprises over and
That's
over.
that's
and
how it
over
was.
again.
And the thing is that the people from Arizona will look at us and be like, "Oh, you're almost there." We're like, "Oh, okay." And we climb and we get to that new hill. "Oh, you're almost there." They did that like 5 times, and it was an actual joke. On the way down, we started saying it to people, "Oh, you're almost there."
And so halfway through the
there was an
hike,
actual dude that did that whole thing barefoot.
That's crazy.
On his way down, he was barefooted, just jumping from rock to rock. And I was like, "Bro, that's badass." He's like, "Oh, thank you." Just going down, jumping and landing. Focused, just barefoot. That was insane.
So this was Camelback Mountain, by the way, guys. I also recommend it. It is difficult, so like, do it at your own responsibility.
Yeah.
Don't do it in the summer. In the summer, that must suck.
Holy balls, yeah.
Yeah.
The breeze definitely helped.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it was hot because it was sunny. And that's why I said, thank God we went in shorts. And dude, I went in a hoodie. I was like, hell no.
No, I
Tank
had
top.
to take my shirt off too.
Yep. It was like
Yeah.
literally a workout.
Yeah.
Like I remember I took a video of I took a selfie video of us like on the top of it. We were like winded.
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah. No, it was hard. It took us what, like 2 hours to get up?
Yeah.
Maybe like
yeah. I thought personally the way down was worse.
for a specific reason, which we could talk about while we talk about ISM because now we're working on that.
Mm-hmm.
So you could talk. I mean, his ankles
So
just
I
gave
have,
up on him.
I have a little bit of trouble with my ankle. Specifically, in this case, my left ankle was not really necessarily in my favor that day. It was kind of showing me the middle finger.
Yeah, it was all the eccentric like. Coming
Yeah,
down.
because whenever when you're going up the mountain, it's easy because you can use your quads to like push yourself off of. And I was using more of my knees and more of my hips, as opposed to when you're going down, it's like you're absorbing force with your ankles the whole time. You're absorbing body weight, and sometimes you have to jump and absorb body weight with velocity, body weight with speed, and do that for 2 hours straight. And eventually, the weakest link is gonna break. And that for me, the weakest link was my left ankle, specifically the very narrow top of my dorsiflexion, right on top of my foot, where ankle becomes shin.
Right where
Not
your
a great
shoe
experience.
ends.
Yeah, not the greatest experience.
Yeah.
And
He had a great
also-
time going up, but on the way down,
the
it
way
was a
down
lot of
was a little
complaining.
bit rough.
It's okay because he provided the nuts.
Yo, we found some dude. The Blue Diamond wasabi nuts.
Oh my God.
Everybody wanted Nick's nuts in this trip.
Everybody wanted. Just couldn't get enough of Nick's nuts.
Yeah, they wanted my nuts so much that when they got home, they asked for more.
Yeah.
And I actually, dude, I went to Boston 3
And
weeks
found
after,
more.
and I found more, but this time they were blueberry flavored.
You know, Anna found them and gave them to me too.
Oh, really? I hated
tried
them.
No, I didn't. I
hated
so
them.
I was actually eating them during work, and I kept telling my clients, I don't know how I feel about this. I need another one.
Yeah.
It was like a weird like.
Mixture of sweet and salty, but
Yeah,
also not really.
yeah.
If you're getting the Blue Diamond nuts, the Nick nuts, get them in
Wasabi
the
and
wasabi
soy sauce.
and soy sauce, or the smokehouse,
The smokehouse is
barbecue.
my
Oh
favorite,
man,
yeah.
that's so good too. Anyways, besides my nuts, let's not stop talking about my nuts.
Yeah. Although I love your nuts, man.
Oh my god, thanks. I haven't heard that in such a long time.
Anyway, so yeah, that was Monday, And then on Monday, we then had leftovers. That's the day that we had the leftovers.
Did I fuck up the leftovers? Is that what I did?
I ate
probably
some of
did.
them, but
Yeah.
you ate most of them. And
Then we had a
yeah.
flight at 6.
And then we
The
had a
same
flight at
exact
6,
flight that
same
they had,
exact-
but the day after.
Yeah.
And that was that.
Yeah.
And then we came home to brainstorm to programming,
Yeah. So now let's talk about
the important stuff.
the important
Now that
stuff.
we're an hour deep into the
An
podcast.
hour deep. This might be a longer podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, how much time do we have?
We're good. Just talk.
Yeah,
Alright.
we're good.
We're good. We're good.
Okay, so let's talk about the standard model of training first.
And why it's
Incomplete.
not necessarily the best way
For long term.
for long
Yeah.
term and I would say specifically for number one, people that are very advanced in their training, in their physical capabilities, that are near their genetic potential, number one. And number two, people that are very keen on keeping improving, as in you are doing it seriously.
Elite level.
Yeah, you're not necessarily the one that is doing it to have fun. You're not the one that's just trying to throw weights around, just trying to have fun in the gym. Because I will agree, some of the exercises are a bit tedious when compared to the jumping, running, fucking throwing shit overhead. Like, it's not as athletic as one would
Yeah.
make it seem. But
There's a lot more effort and focus that needs to go into these exercises.
correct, it's a lot more mental work as well. And so that's why I say this is for the people that want to keep improving and that want to be the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it could be for
But I
anybody.
mean,
It
yeah,
just,
exactly.
It just you need to understand that like this is a very specific type of training, and one of the things that we've been doing is we've been recording exercises so that we can program for our clients.
Because by the way, the exercises that we're talking about, they don't exist.
They
Like
don't,
you
yeah.
can't look it
You
up.
can't find
You
them.
can't look internal strength model exercise. Like that doesn't exist. We have to literally record
You have to
ourselves
make
and
up the
create 'em.
exercise.
Yeah, because they don't really teach exercises. They teach the thought process behind them and how they apply to your biomechanics. And now us trainers, we have to get creative to record them, so much so that at some point in the seminar, they gave us time to play. As in they made all the people that were taking the seminar, here, guys, make use of the gym and go get as creative as you can and create me as much cool shit as you can because I want to record it.
with the concepts that we just
Correct,
learned.
yeah.
Yeah. So the standard model of training is based off of external movements. So let's just talk about the big five, right? Squat, deadlift, press, pull, and some sort of trunk stability or movement, right? So like
Yeah.
that includes
Which, by the way, the standard model came from the Soviet
Yeah.
Union, the studies that they made back in the day with most of their Olympic lifters.
Mhm.
I just posted a reel about that,
yeah,
actually.
you did.
Um,
Very good reel. You should check it out.
And they basically translated that type of training that was specifically for Olympic
Olympics.
lifters to everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they pretty much saw the studies that certain performance markers increased in the Olympic lifters. It's like, oh, this improves this and this improves this.
Which, by the way, was a very smart
Decision.
thing
yeah.
to do. Like, the
At the
way
time.
that they,
Yeah.
it changed everything, and it
It created the field of exercise science because exercise science wasn't a thing until the 80s.
it was
really.
just go and work out.
Yeah, or in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was just bodybuilding. The bodybuilding was the only thing in the strength training industry ever,
Right.
like in the times of the 70s and the Arnold and everything. That's why the field is so new.
Yeah, and then Westside Barbell
Took it further.
took it further
Yeah, with
after the Soviets
Louis.
and Louis Simmons. He started really bringing all of that in and bringing in the accessory exercises and the deloads and all of
The
these things.
variations.
The variations. But also, so that's the conjugate method, right? And then we also have the linear periodization method. So those are I think the two main
There's
standard
there's DUP as well. That's also a big one.
daily
nowadays.
undulation.
Yeah, that's a
Right.
huge one nowadays too.
Yeah,
that people
yeah.
use.
So those are, I think, yeah, you're right. So conjugate method, which is where you're kind of training a couple different aspects at the same time, varying through
aspects as in movements.
movements,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Then you have the linear periodization, where you're just focusing on one thing per block of training, which a block of training could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks, whatever. And the daily undulation method, where you are focusing on different things every day. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So daily undulation. You train.
The daily undulation, I think.
One day will be strength. Like let's say
Yeah.
you're picking a squat. One day will be strength. Another will be hypertrophy. Another will be
repetition.
repetition based. Not repetition, but like speed work or something like that.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you're trying to improve. Well,
It's
you're training everything at the same week.
The point of it is to avoid accommodation.
Right.
That's always the point of any of these programs.
Which makes
complete sense.
Complete sense, and has worked for a lot of people. A lot of people have gotten crazy records, crazy strong, crazy performance using these methods. But we still have the problem that all of these athletes, all of these
Program
people,
types.
run into a lot of injuries, plateaus, aren't able to get past a certain wall, etc. And most of these high elite performing athletes perform with a lot of pain, perform with a lot of limitations, and outside of what they're training, they may have a lot of limitations that they can't do. So this is why we believe that the current model of training is somewhat incomplete. And
Well, I wouldn't say we believe, we know.
we know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah.
Like, if you keep
Like
getting
if you break down
injuries-
anatomy, no, not even that. If you just break down anatomy, you can tell that we're not training everything that we
and
could.
we'll talk about exactly what that is.
Yeah.
So those are the I think most famous, most used ways of programming.
Yeah.
I've
Nowadays,
used,
at
I
least,
think I've used
specifically.
all of them.
Yeah.
For different clients and in different periods of my life. Once I learned each one, I was like, oh, let's try this out. And you can get great results with all of those, especially if you're a beginner, like Nick is saying. You're not going to run into these issues until a little bit later once you get strong, and, you know, the stronger you get.
Yeah, basically anything works in the beginning.
Yeah.
For you.
Anything works in the beginning. So what is the internal strength model?
You want me to do it?
It's going to be a long
So
talk.
I guess a good place to start is everything that you just mentioned, all these programming types and all these programming strategies, they're all implement the exercises on what is called the external practice of movement.
Mhm.
And the goal of training, what training really is building, changing tissues in a way that is more favorable for you to achieve the goals that you have.
Mhm.
So
It's-
that's what training should be.
That's what training should be. It's
Should be.
building the things that need to be built for you to achieve your goals.
But what is it now?
And what it is now is just the practice of your goals.
Yeah. So, like, to put that in different words, if I ask Jose, or not Jose, because Jose would give me a different answer. But if I ask a random person in a gym, how strong are you? What they would tell me is...
I can be that person.
Okay. Jose, how strong are you?
I bench 315 pounds.
It's cap.
But yes, that's the answer I was looking for.
I just said I'm the person. I'm pretending to be another person. I
he's
actually
channeling.
bench 405 pounds. So chill, bro.
Yeah. So yes, exactly. That's what I
Bro
was
is hitting
alluding to.
Taylor Atwood.
That's what I was alluding to. If you ask people how strong they are, they will give you a lift, and they will give you what they can do in that lift.
Mm-hmm.
What is incomplete with that is that that's not how strong you are. That is what you are capable of doing in that specific external movement. That tells me nothing about the components of strength internally in your body that you have access to.
That's right. And then I think the other part of that, which is also important to mention, is that people can say, oh, but I am going to use this lift to build more internal capacity, which sure, that can happen. However, whenever you're performing a movement-based, a movement like a name one, like a squat, like a bench, or like
And a
in the case of the
movement
bench.
can be a
In-
squat, a bench press, shooting a basketball,
Yeah.
kicking a soccer ball. Those are all
Swinging a
movements
bat.
created by men,
by your
by people,
Yeah,
By man.
by
By the way.
man, by man. Yeah, let's be. We gotta be more specific
it's
now.
It's words.
By,
It's
yeah,
it sounds
it's
with
words.
Your,
It's
with your,
man that your coach teaches you.
Humankind.
That your coach teaches you to perform.
That's right. And he tries to correct you how to perform. Whenever you are training these things, there is no uniform way in which your brain recruits tissues to get those tasks accomplished. And so because of that lack of uniformity, we can't exactly target exactly what we're trying to train. I hope that made sense.
Yes. So I'll put it in another way. Let's say
Thank
somebody
you.
gets injured, and let's say somebody injures their ACL. What they will most likely do to rehab that process is train exercises that are already created in some sort of library. So that will be the exercises that will strengthen the tissues around that ACL, most likely your quad, your hamstring, your calves, etc. So they'll probably do a lot of squatting, maybe some
Spanish
single leg
squat.
squatting, some hip bridging, maybe even a little bit of like leg extension, leg curl type of stuff. But very rarely, and stretching. And I can say this, by the way, because I have personal experience in the physical therapy field, being in a clinic, seeing these things happen. So I'm not just a trainer talking out of my ass saying that the rehab process is incomplete. I have personally experienced this in several clinics, that they are not focusing on the specific tissue that was damaged during an injury. This doesn't have to be an injury, by the way, that you should be training these tissues
Regardless.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times,
Because whatever is not trained falls into entropy, which is deterioration, which is breakdown.
Yes.
So if you're not training, it's never stopped. Like, you're never not doing anything. It's either regressing or progressing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't train, you're regressing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I think it's incomplete. I think the standard model of training, or the standard model of rehab, physical therapy, all these things is incomplete, because we are training the most superficial stuff, and we're forgetting about
The deep stuff.
the
Deep
deep
stuff.
stuff. So let's talk about
What are these
that
deep
stuff-
things? What are
Right.
these deep stuff?
So in order, the deepest thing that you want to worry about is your joint capsule. Why?
What is that?
Your joint capsule is the space where a bone, let's say your femur, which is your thigh bone, let's say that, meets your acetabulum, which is the part of your pelvis that meets your thigh bone, that femur, that allows your leg to do any movement that you can do externally. So like when you pick your leg up, that joint capsule, there are these things called mechanoreceptors, which are basically just like sensors that tell your body where that joint is and what it is doing and what direction it's going.
And
how
they send that
fast it's going.
information back to your brain, so your brain can have awareness of what is doing what.
Exactly. So that is the joint capsule. That's the deepest stuff. We'll talk about why it's important to train that in a second. The next deepest stuff is your connective tissue, which is joints. Sorry, it's not joints. Ligaments, tendons, all this white tissue stuff. After that, we have rotational tissue, and this is only there's only one exception to this, which is the spine.
Yes.
So after the
Rotational muscle tissue.
rotational muscle tissue,
Yeah.
right? So after the connective tissue, we have rotational tissue, and then on top of that,
We have the linear.
we have the linear tissue, which is what most
the
people are
super-
The
training.
superficial muscles.
Yeah.
Superficial muscle. So we are forgetting about
The traditional,
capsule.
the traditional.
the traditional model of training.
training.
All of the three that we mentioned very rarely touch on, well, almost never touch on joint capsule.
I've never seen a touch on joint capsule.
I've never seen it touch on connective tissue. Very rarely do I see it touch on rotational tissue.
And that is when they get injured.
Exactly. When they
Out of
get
nowhere,
injured is
start
when
rotating
they,
everything.
Yeah.
And you're forgetting one very important part of this.
the afferent. Yes.
In between, these are all in all these tissues that we don't train. They're all layered on top of each other in that exact order that we just mentioned. And in between each and every single part of those layers, there is a layer of communication in between them and your brain. That's
Your
called
nerves.
Right. That's called afferent-efferent flow. And that is also a trainable quality in and of itself. So not only can you train the tissues, you can train the communication in between all these tissues to your brain.
Yeah. By the way, let me explain what afferent means. Sensory input and sensory output. Some of you might know those words better. It's basically afferent is the information that your brain is receiving from these mechanoreceptors that I was just talking about, and from nerve endings, period. So like if I pinch Nick, his brain got afferent feedback from me pinching his arm that tells him something is pinching my arm, and then it sends back a signal to create pain. So, and that signal that it sends back is the efferent signal.
That's right.
So,
And by the way, your capsule is the part of your body that has the most
the most mechanical.
mechanoreceptors.
Yeah.
So it's the one that communicates to your brain the most.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And let me explain why that's important real quick, because I like the baby's example. Remember the beach baby's example?
Mm-hmm.
If you
That was so funny when he said that in my seminar too. He was like, "I'm gonna use this little example.
oh, it's great.
It's weird.
It's great because
You guys are gonna think I'm fucked up. But imagine putting babies in an island by themselves. And everybody was like, "What the hell? Where are you going with this?" But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's how the example goes. It's like, let's say we get 10 babies and we exclude them from the rest of humanity and we just isolate them in the beach somewhere where nobody can find them. And then we leave them there for like 50 years. They're going to grow into adults. When you come back, they're not going to be crawling. They're going to be walking. Why? Because that is the way that the brain found to make the movement of locomotion into the world the most efficient as possible. Meaning nobody taught them how to walk. They learned it by themselves through these mechanoreceptors, through the signals that their joints were sending to their brain. And so apply this concept of babies walking at the beach for 50 years to squatting, to benching, to deadlifting.
By the way, that's called the developmental sequence if you want to look it up and learn more about that.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to point out, is that your movements are naturally going to become more efficient over time the more your mechanoreceptors send better and better signals to your brain, which you can train how well your mechanoreceptors send signals to your brain. That's a trainable quality.
And the way that you do that is
Practice.
and also making sure that you are stimulating these mechanoreceptors.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to stimulate more of these mechanoreceptors, you can't just be doing the same movement every single time, especially in a linear manner. Most of your joints, like I said, the only one that is the exception is your spine. For anything that you do, even if you think it's a linear movement, so like when I move for people that are listening, you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing, but I'm lifting my arm up. Like I'm lifting my arm so that my bicep is by my ear. That is like considered a linear movement, but in order for that linear movement to occur, rotation in the joint needs to happen, as well as in your...
The way that I like to explain is that all these movements all happen within a certain degree of rotation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, why is it important to train these deep tissues? Why is it important to so we're going to talk about the flow in a little bit, but why is it important to train these deep tissues?
Well, do you use them when performing?
They're the first
actions
thing you use. So
Correct.
whenever you move a joint, like let's say your knee, when you
Give an example. Let's say they're doing leg extensions.
that's what I was going to say. So whenever you're doing a leg extension, you think that the first thing to move is your quadricep, but no. The first thing that gets a signal to move are the mechanoreceptors in your knee joint.
Capsule.
Right, in the capsule of the knee. So if those mechanoreceptors are not stimulated properly, you will lose the function of those mechanoreceptors. Those mechanoreceptors will, for the lack of a better word, go dormant. Therefore, you're not going to have access to certain abilities, ranges of motion, control, strength, etc., neural output, force output, all of these things. So there's no debate as to what level of tissue most injuries happen. That level of tissue is the connective tissue. When somebody talks about I tore my hamstring or I tore my bicep,
My pec.
most
likely there are some extreme examples where they actually will tear the muscle
Yeah, give the example of the ACL.
of his ACL.
And no, anterior cruciate ligament.
Right. So and that's one of the most talked about or the most common injuries. People in sports, you will for sure, people watching for sure, you will have heard about one of your favorite athletes tearing their ACL. An ACL is a ligament. It is not a muscle. They didn't tear a muscle. They tore a ligament. That's connective tissue. The reason why these injuries, and by the way, if you tear your ACL, the most likely injury that'll happen afterwards is that you tear your ACL again. The reason why these things are true is because we're not training these tissues.
We're not training connective tissue.
We're not training connective tissue. So while our muscles are getting stronger, by the way, your muscle is the muscle belly, right? The skeletal muscle. And at both ends of your muscle, you have white tissue, which is your tendon. The difference between a tendon and a ligament is a tendon connects muscle to bone and a ligament connects bone to bone. But they're both connective tissue. And that's usually where injuries happen.
Remember, there's also connective tissue inside the muscle as well.
Inside the muscle, yes.
Yeah, it's not just at the
But
ends.
I think you were referring to each muscle fiber.
Yeah.
Has that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's absolutely
That's very
true.
important to know.
There is intramuscular connective tissue. So connective tissue
It's
you're
not
right,
only
it's
at
not
the
just
ends,
at the ends.
it's
It
everywhere.
runs through the muscle. And we're not doing any specific exercises. By the way, I do want to be clear about this. All of your exercises do somewhat train your connective tissue, but they don't bias it. They don't focus on it. So the focus is primarily on the actual muscle itself. And the stronger let's say your quadricep gets, if your patellar tendon, by the way, your patellar tendon is the tendon of your quadricep that ends below your knee. So it goes over your kneecap and attaches below your kneecap. And it's a tendon that a lot of people tear or at least have problems with. And a big reason as to why that is because if you strengthen your quadricep at a rate that exceeds the rate at which the tendon is strengthening, because all of your exercises are biasing the muscle, eventually your quadricep will become too strong for your tendon, and the tendon will give, which is the definition of an injury. We've already defined this in other ones. I'll do it briefly. The definition of an injury is when a force that is being placed on a tissue is greater than that tissue's load-bearing capacity.
I literally posted a video about that today. I told people in the beginning of the video to stop trying to build muscle. Why? Because the more muscle they build, the more connective tissue they're going to have to build before that, so the muscle can sustain functionality, because the muscle, it literally pulls on the connective tissue. That's literally the base at which it pulls from to exert force.
Yeah.
And if that force exerted, it's more than what the connective tissue can handle, that's when it's gonna tear. It's like almost like when you're trying to get like a cable out of a wall, like a wire, like for like your toaster,
pulling it from
and you pull the ball with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is why we see the epidemic of injuries happening to athletes, professional athletes, more than ever, because even though the strength and conditioning programming has gotten better over the years in terms of like building muscle and building strength, we're still lagging behind on building connective tissue. So athletes are getting stronger. You see on social media, athletes squatting 500 pounds, 600 pounds.
Jalen Hurts, the quarterback, squatting
Yeah.
over 600 pounds.
People power cleaning, at 170 pounds, 405 pounds, insane numbers. So they're getting stronger than they were in the 70s or the 80s, but they're getting stronger too much in the muscles, like Andres explained. And so eventually those loads are too much for the ligaments and tendons to bear. And so that's why you're seeing a lot more ACLs, a lot more ligament and tendon injuries, because what system is training the connective tissue? So we're using the system that has worked for muscles, but we have to put that system into also training connective tissue so that we can get even stronger without getting injured.
Yeah. So there are 4 components to strength, and this is this is straight out of this certification. There are 4 components to strength, and the 2 ones that you probably already know are your muscles, or your skeletal muscle, and your nervous system. So the combination of those 2, the capacity of your muscles to contract, the amount of fibers that your muscles have, combined with the capacity of your nervous system to contract those fibers, makes up strength. Okay? But there's 2 missing pieces to that, which is connective tissue and joint space. So those are the 2 things that we're not training that are leading us to these injuries. So now what the internal strength model does is it creates a structure, a flow, that goes from training the deepest tissue, and then every step of the way as you're going into more superficial tissue, you are then relaying that information that you just gained back to your system so that your system uploads it and registers it and holds onto it.
Nervous system.
Nervous system, right. So I'll give you an example of how a flow would go. You would expand, I'm not going to say how, but you would expand your joint space. Like, let's say you have a throwing athlete, and you want that throwing athlete to have a better shoulder, right? What you would do is you would want to increase the space in which that shoulder can perform. Increasing the space in which that shoulder can perform will give that athlete more access to tissue that he can use to throw harder, to throw faster, to have more control of the
Not
throw.
only that, dude, but also every single throw he does out in the field adds fatigue to that shoulder. Now, not only can he throw further because he has more access to more tissue, but the force that he uses
Can
to
be
throw
distributed through
will be
more.
distributed through more stuff, which means it's less likely that one single line of tissue gets overused, which overuse is how you create an injury. And so you can mitigate injuries just by creating more space, just because the force can be dispersed more.
Yeah. So let's say we want to build a better shoulder for that athlete. What we would do is we would first expand the space of that shoulder capsule. Once we have expanded that space, by the way, for most of the techniques when you are stretching or expanding this space are very temporary. What it really does is it gives you a window of opportunity of training that new space that you just gained access to, so that over time
Becomes permanent.
it becomes permanent. So you expand that joint space through certain techniques, and then you would start training that new connective tissue that you just gained access to, and also, so you just gained access to more connective tissue that you have not been using, which probably doesn't have directional fibers because you haven't been using it. What that means is just what people call it scar tissue, right? So like that's what people call scar tissue. It's just connective tissue that doesn't have purpose. It doesn't have direction of fibers because force has not been placed on that tissue, so that tissue has developed in a non-uniform way, okay? So that's a problem because now that tissue is just useless pretty much. You want to train that tissue once you get access to it, but now also you want to build more tissue with that new space that you have available. So that's step 2. Then you would also want to strengthen the next layer. By the way, in between all of these layers, again, like Nick said, we are relaying that information back to the brain by working through that new workspace, making sure that we are teaching the body how not just to be there by stretching into it, but by contracting into it, therefore gaining more control of that space. Then we would train the rotational tissue, go back to afferent, efferent flow, nervous system stuff. And lastly, we would train the linear stuff, which is what most of you are doing in the gym.
There's one more part to that, which is
The
the
movement.
movement practice. Yeah, that's also mostly what people train in the
Yeah.
gym as well.
And the movement practice will be your sport or whatever goal you're trying to achieve in exercise goal you're trying to achieve in the gym.
So that's not really training your tissues. That's training the ability of your tissues to do something.
Right.
Yeah,
That
which is
behavior.
very, very different. Like, and obviously with powerlifting, this gets very confusing because it's like you use a squat to build your quads, but in powerlifting, that is your movement.
Yeah.
So it's
that,
like
that is exactly, that's your sport.
yeah. So it's like, oh, so I can't use the squat. It's like, no, you can, but that's only one part of it. I would place the squat in the movement practice because that is what you're doing as your sport. You're squatting. So that's why I think that gets confused a lot, specifically with the case of the strength sports. Yeah, they're using the same movement to build things as opposed to expose things.
And so would that be a good segue into how we are avoiding accommodation by performing this flow?
Yeah, that's great.
Because accommodation is when your body adapts to doing a certain task. And so it happens when you practice it often, your body adapts to do that better and better each time.
That's the point of training. The point of training is to avoid accommodation because if you're accommodated, you're not progressing.
Yeah. But at the same time, accommodation is also a good thing. 'cause
It's a
you're
great thing.
getting
That means we're
better.
adapting.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the case of a powerlifter, they say the first time you start squatting, you're gonna be super sore. Like you can't sit down on the toilet. That's happened to all of us when we started, right? That's happened to every
Or
single
when
one
you
of
take
us.
a big break and then you come back, same
Or-
I
thing.
rode the bike for an hour for the first time in a year. I can barely walk for a year.
So, but now as you continue to squat often, multiple times a week or months at a time, years at a time, eventually it doesn't get you just as sore. Unless you do something completely crazy. Like let's say you start doing like 1,000 repetitions in one day, but whatever. So over time, as you continue to squat, your body is adapting or molding itself to do the squat at a more efficient manner. So you start losing all the qualities that your body used to have. So in this case, you start losing, let's say, joint space around your hip, or joint space around your spine, or joint space around your ankle, because you're just funneling the same energy or the same fibers direction in the same place.
And by the way,
every
this
single time.
happens because your body's trying to conserve energy.
Exactly.
As in, it takes away what you're not using simply because it thinks it doesn't need it. And so why would it keep it there wasting energy?
Right.
Because it wastes energy to keep these ranges of motion
It's
alive.
expensive.
It's expensive.
Yeah. And so your body's always trying to be the most efficient as it possibly can. So it's like, well, he's not using, shoulder rotation anymore. Might as well chop that away.
So in the beginning, everything's fine because, since you're a beginner, everything works. But let's say you've been squatting for the past 12 years. You start running into the quote unquote old heads in the gym, right? They're like telling you, bro, stop squatting. It's going to hurt your hips. I'm all fucked up, man. I used to squat 600 pounds and right now I can't even squat anymore because my back got fucked up, my knee got fucked up, my hip got fucked up. So stop squatting. Yeah. And you're like, you're just old. But they're right. They're right, because if you just continue to squat, eventually you're just funneling the same energy to the same tissues over time. They start degrading. And eventually they give.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you start getting injured every single time that you squat. You start feeling the pinching sensations on your hip, or you start having knee pain, or you start having lower back pain. But it's because you have lost space. You have accommodated to the movement.
You have lost quality.
You have
of
lost
tissue.
quality of tissue.
Yeah. And we're talking a lot about elite level athletes, but I want to also portray, because I think that a lot of the people that are going to be listening may not be elite level athletes. This also applies to the general population so much, because let's go into the physical therapy realm for a second. If you have an injury, and specifically if it's a connective tissue injury, so like if you tear a ligament or a tendon, you want to rehab that tendon. In the physical therapy field, we have this saying, we have this phrase called return to previous level of function. And that is the whole goal of a rehab process, is to get this person back to the level of function that they had before they got injured. The problem with that is that the previous level of function that they had before they got injured allowed them to get fucking injured. So what you need to think about is that if you don't want to run into that injury again, your level of function needs to exceed your previous level of function. The way that you do that, specifically if it's a connective tissue injury, is by building quality connective tissue that is more quality than what you previously had. It is more quality, and also you would want more connective tissue. Also, you would want more capsule space so that those things don't keep happening. There's a reason why if you tear your ACL, the most likely injury that will happen to you afterwards is that you tear your ACL. It's because you are not training your ACL to a level that will exceed the level of function that you previously had that caused your injury, especially if you are an athlete. I brought it to the physical therapy world, but like if you're an athlete and you want to get back to that field to do the things that you were doing before you got injured, you want to make sure that whatever you're going back to that field with is going to be better than what you had previously, because you don't want to keep running into that same injury. The way that you would do this is with this internal strength model by training the capsule, then training the connective tissue, building more architecture of that connective tissue, building more quality of that connective tissue, increasing the load-bearing capacity of that connective tissue so that whatever force you are going to place on it afterwards, it's able to handle that. You want to be able to handle slow forces, you want to be able to handle medium velocity forces, and you want to be able to handle fast velocity forces. And there's a spectrum of how you would train that, and it's very specific. So, and it's not, like Nick was saying, it's not named exercises, it's just understanding the human function, the joint function, and how to load those tissues specifically and progressively overload them over time with different stimulus so that you can exceed that level of function and get the level of function that you require to perform the activities or sport or whatever lifestyle you want to perform that you want without getting injured.
Facts.
That was heavy.
That was heavy. That was passionate.
So you brought it to 0,
Yeah.
as in rehab, PT, and you also brought it to 100, as in professional athlete. Most people are not in there. Most people are right in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
They're just the accountant dude that's in the office, or the front desk girl that's sitting all day in her ass typing up shit in the computer. Why would this apply to those people as well? Why can't they just do linear movement training forever?
Because of the word that we used before, entropy. If you are not training these tissues, eventually, and this is why, so like bringing it back, like a lot of my clients are that general population, right? So not the elite level athletes, and also not the physical therapy,
Broken people.
I don't want to say broken people, but people that need physical therapy. People seem to have this idea that pain just, whatever you do, you can't avoid it. It comes with age. Dysfunction, you can't avoid it. It comes with age. And a lot of things that I've heard when I've had to try to have these conversations of different styles of training so that we can avoid these things happening, the response that I get, especially because I'm young, is, you don't understand. You'll know whenever you're older. Mm-hmm. The problem is, again, they've never tried to specifically train these tissues so that they don't have that level of pain. And one example that is great to use is low back pain. 80% of the population, at least in the United States, by the way, I'm using numbers back from 2020, could be higher now. But back in 2020, 80% of the population reported to have low back pain. So what that tells me is that 80% of the population is not training their low back to have the capacity to support whatever they're doing. And that, by the way, could be just sitting. If your multifidus muscle, which is a muscle that's very deep in your spine,
Which, by the way, we learned how to palpate.
Yes.
At the seminar.
Yes, this is what I'm getting
awesome.
to. If your multifidus, which, by the way, most people talk about erectors, which is, again, more superficial muscle. So, again, we're always focusing on that superficial muscle for some reason, which is important.
It's because they're the ones that you can see.
It's the ones that you can see, the ones that you can feel.
They give you the Christmas tree,
Yeah,
bro.
Christmas tree. So, if your multifidus is not just strong enough, but if it doesn't have the capacity to hold specific loads for long enough time,
So the endurance of it.
then you're going to run into issues. Even if you're sitting down, that's why a lot of people have low back pain, even if they're not lifting heavy weight, because they're putting stress on this tissue for long periods of time, and that tissue just can't keep up with it. And if you're not specifically doing things to stimulate this tissue so that it can have more capacity and hold loads over longer periods of time, then you're going to run into these issues. So that's where this comes in. Like the CEO, the person that has an office job that doesn't necessarily need physical therapy, but has these.
If they're not training it, it will deteriorate.
It will deteriorate, and you will eventually be the person in physical
Yeah.
therapy.
Another thing that I want to bring up, and I also made a reel about this. Let's say you want to grow your shoulder. You want to look good. You want the bolder shoulders. You want to go to the beach and have a beach body. You want to grow your chest, whatever. And you have only 40% of access to your shoulder. You're going to make 40% of the progress. You're going to gain 40% of the muscle that you possibly could. At most.
At most, because you most likely you'll do less than that. Because
Correct.
if you have access to 40% of your shoulder, you're probably not actually using that whole 40%.
Yeah.
Because that
and
would be.
This is a phrase that put it to perspective for me. At some point, if your access to your shoulder is low enough in the threshold of how many fibers you can recruit, an incline bench, a flat bench, and a decline bench will all work the same parts of your chest just because you don't have access to the other ones.
Yeah, exactly. So
which makes them way more specific makes training way more specific to the individual than the training itself. It's like, let me give him incline bench because I want to grow his upper chest. It's like, well, does his shoulder have access to the upper chest first? Can you test that first so that we make sure that we can grow the upper chest with an incline bench?
Right.
If not, we're not going to grow the incline.
So I think, and I was thinking about this the other day when I was at the gym. And by the way, Nick is training me right now, and I'm coaching Nick, and we're both using this model. We are 3 weeks into our training with 4. We're on our 4th week now. We're on our 4th week.
I finished the fourth week right after this podcast.
Yeah. I'm feeling great.
Dude, he's got jacked and strong and like.
And I have I'm not even doing hypertrophy exercises. I mean, I am doing hypertrophy exercises, but not the traditional ones.
Yeah. It's like very little to be honest.
Little, very little. And my arms are looking bigger than they have in the past 2 years. So there's definitely something to this.
And you don't feel beat up.
And I don't feel beat up. I feel great, if anything, when I'm lifting.
And by the way, Andres is not someone that is devoting his whole life to this. He trains people for like 7 hours a day, every day. Wakes up at 4 a.m. every day. He has a wife and a son,
5-year-old.
5-year-old. So it's like he's a busy guy, and he's still feeling great, getting strong while prepping for a powerlifting competition.
Every
So
week.
he's training 3 days a week?
Four.
Four.
4 days a week.
4 days.
4 days a week.
1 hour.
1 hour. Yeah, the workouts aren't
So you're
super
working
long.
out 4 hours.
And by
a
the
week.
way, this is him after him lifting for how many years?
10 plus.
And he's still making progress with all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And significant progress at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the way that this feels when I'm training with this model, instead of feeling like I'm going through a workout, I feel, also because I understand it, but the way that I look at it is I am going in and sending stimulus to every part that I want to improve.
It's almost like you become an architect of your own body.
Exactly. So I'm like, I want more of this. I am going to send a signal for my body to get more of that. I want more of this, so I'm going to send that signal to get more of that. Whatever that.
It's like cooking.
specific
It's like,
thing
I
is.
want a little bit more of a salty flavor. So
Exactly.
some more
Exactly.
salt. Yeah.
Exactly. And bodybuilding is kind of like that.
That's what I was going to say. It's the most approximating thing to this is bodybuilding because of the internal focus.
Exactly.
Every single other sport has an external focus because they have to perform externally at some point.
Right.
They have to throw a ball. They have to squat a barbell. It doesn't
Right.
matter. Bodybuilding is the opposite.
Bodybuilding
You're using external objects to affect in the internal environment, and that's more in line with what training actually is, because that's what training actually is.
Yeah. but still, bodybuilding still doesn't focus on the connective tissue
Yeah.
and the joint capsule. So
which is why they have a lot of joint pain.
right.
Right.
Right. And perfect example, Ronnie Coleman,
Yeah.
one of the biggest bodybuilders of all time, lost function of his legs. And I believe it was because of a squat that he did one time.
Yeah, but
and-
you know it wasn't because of the squat.
Well, I mean, when it happened,
That's a lot of
Yeah,
factors,
yeah.
but he
that
did
that
not.
is the straw that
Yeah.
broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ronnie's back. And he lost function of his legs, and now
He's struggling.
he's struggling.
Yeah.
And that, I'm not saying that it could have completely been avoided, but you could have 100% trained in a way that would have made that much less likely to occur.
Right. In all fairness, too, like
He didn't have the
he didn't have the
didn't know.
information.
Yeah, they didn't know that back then.
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
That was
But now that we do know that,
Now we do know the
it is
information.
our responsibility to make sure that does not happen again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So we've been training this way. It makes a lot of sense. It makes you feel like you are literally preparing your body for anything. Because that is the way that when I program for Nick or when Nick is programming for me,
I think we take into consideration what are the things that the client has that will help him accomplish his goal, and what are the things that they don't have that they probably could use more of. We make a list of what these things are, lay it out in front of us. It's like, and you kind of build like a puzzle, as in
Mhm.
like, where can I fit all these things to make sure that the things that he needs the most get targeted the most, and that's kind of how you build a program.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And at the end of my training session is where I train
The movement.
what I'm actually training that day. Well, not what I'm actually training that day because everything else I'm
But
training.
bro, are you not tired after doing all this stuff?
So that's actually, I've been training at this gym. It's a very
Did you tell him that I
commercial
was the
gym.
one programming it, or no?
No, I didn't know that he knew you.
Oh, he's my boy.
I know that he knew
Yeah.
Jose, but I didn't know that he knew you.
We competed together in
Oh, true.
in Miami.
So somebody, again, I don't like using names in the podcast, but
A friend of mine and an old client of Jose's.
trains at the gym that
local
I'm
with
training
us.
at now, and he's seen me. He knows a lot about FRC, which is the initial thing that we learned. It's the very small part of this bigger thing that we're talking about. So he's seen me training day after day, and I'm doing all these weird exercises that, again, we're having to film because we can't. There's no way of explaining them over the phone or no videos online that we can show our clients. And he was asking me because I told him that I signed. Oh, by the way, I signed up for. I think we already talked about this. I signed up for a powerlifting meet June 25th.
June 25th, Paradise Gym, Miami.
Yeah.
Show
So I'll
up
be there.
and cheer for him.
Yes, I will be
And
there.
Dr. Tito.
And Dr.
Tito is competing not against him directly, but they're throwing shade at each other.
We are.
and
Yeah, I'm gonna win.
and I'm
but it's
coaching
okay.
them both actually. And Dr. Tito's making good progress.
Yeah, is he?
Yeah.
Don't tell me because
Good luck, dude.
It's gonna be a surprise.
he also outweighs me.
Dude,
but
but
I'm
he's
still
he was
gonna-
also a college athlete, as in he played baseball for years, and he was pretty good, dude. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
he's,
yeah. He's got the
the
he's
lower
got
body
the
is
heritage
pretty
for baseball.
extraneous. It's pretty voluptuous
Yeah.
lower body.
So, where was I going?
The guy from the
Oh yeah. Okay. So this guy,
I was like, oh,
he's asking me. The first question that he asked me was, what accessory movements? Because I told him that I'm competing for this powerlifting competition. So he asked me, how many accessory movements are you doing for your training? And my response was, none. Because accessory movements are thought of as this specific, similar type movement to what you're supposed to be doing, but different enough that it's going to kind of help that movement become better. But again, that's that external way of thinking that like this exercise is going to help that exercise. Where the way that we are thinking now is, let me break down the movement that I'm training for. What are the components that I need for that movement?
the specific biology, the specific
biology
tissues
and
that
the
make that
neurology.
happen.
so basically you're using the exercises that you're creating to train the components rather than having your components train
the exercise.
Correct.
Exactly.
You
So now
flip
we're
it around.
flipping it.
Yeah.
Now we're training the components. So, for example, I'm gonna give my bench day.
Oh,
What
yeah,
I do
man.
because this is when I had the conversation with
Yeah,
him.
it's great.
What I do on my bench day, or what Nick is having me do on my bench day, is have the intent of that day is to increase my thoracic spine extension,
Why?
because while you're bench pressing, if you have more extension, you will have less range of motion, and you will also be able to get a better scapular retraction. You will be able to have a more stable surface with which you can push off, and also you will build a stronger spine, period.
Yeah.
So all of those things are true. So what the lead up to my actual movement of that day, which is going to be the bench press, is training my spine to go through all of those things that we talked about when we were talking about flow. So increasing the space that my spine has to extend, increasing the load-bearing capacity of the connective tissue of my spine so that it can hold more load.
We do that with the speed, with the catch. Is that what you're referring to? The
Well, we do-
Jefferson curl catch?
Yeah, Jefferson
Right.
curl catch.
Yeah.
Especially under velocity, and
Yeah.
and also
Which, by the way, I want to make it clear. The reason I gave it to him under speed is because I know that he's been training that for a while.
Right.
And I know that he can handle the connective tissue contracting or the muscles contracting, pulling in the connective tissue under a lot of speed, which produces a lot of force.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't give that to the majority of my clients yet.
Yeah. So I've been training this specific exercise that we're talking about is the Jefferson curl, which is where you round your back under load. It's like a very what people would look at as a very bad form.
It's the worst deadlift you can possibly do.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but it trains your spine, so that's why you would want to do it. Usually people do it slow and controlled, but I've gotten to a point in my spectrum of training that I have advanced my capacity enough that I can start putting load with velocity added to it so that my connective tissue can start getting used to handling velocity and load,
Which is more
under
force.
velocity, right? So like, let's say, for example, why would that be important? Let's say on a deadlift, my back, my thoracic spine gives out, and I end up flexing my thoracic spine. If my connective tissues have never felt that velocity momentum before, it's very likely that I'm going to run into an injury. But if I am consistently training that under control and progressively overloading that movement, it is much less likely that I'm going to get injured if that happens. So that's a great reason why you would want to get to that level of training. But I'm using it also for just increasing my performance of my bench. So I'm breaking down the components. So in this specific day, we are increasing the capacity of my spine to extend so my bench press can improve. And then I train my movement. So it feels amazing.
And
it
aren't
is
you tired
honestly-
by the time you get to the bench?
No. Well, I mean, my spine, the way that, I mean, the specific inputs, like I could be tired if we were doing other inputs like continuous tension sets and
Yeah.
things like that. But in this day, I think the only
In this
thing...
program, that is not the goal, because the
Right.
goal is not to create new tissue, or at least not new muscle
Right.
tissue.
It's just to create more control
Yeah.
and more load-bearing capacity of the connective tissue. So some of the things that I'm doing are T-spine cars, thoracic spine cars, about for a minute, I think I'm doing them. Not to failure, so I'm not doing all of these things to failure. The goal is to get more access and more connectivity to this tissue so that when I set up my bench and I arch my back in that bench, I can actually feel those tissues contracting and I can control that arch and I'm not just sitting into the arch, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I feel. As soon as I get into that bench, I feel complete control of my erectors, of my multifidus, of all of those spinal muscles that are going to help me achieve that arch and also get better scapular retraction so that I can have less range of motion and also a more stable surface to push from.
And the more your scapula retract, the more you can go into the opposite contraction, which is
Exactly.
pushing.
Exactly. So that's the way that I'm training. So
basically, you're telling us that you're not benching 5 days a week
To increase your bench.
To increase your
No.
bench.
No, I'm benching very little, and my bench is going up quite a lot. I'm deadlifting very little, and my deadlift is going up quite a lot. How many times am I deadlifting? 3, 2?
You have 2, but one's a practice day.
Once a practice.
Yeah,
so I'm,
the other one's
I'm
max
deadlifting
effort.
twice
Yeah.
a week, and every single time without a miss, even on the days that I don't eat well, I'm still getting higher numbers. And it is incredible because it feels crazy. And mind you, I've gotten crazy results before. We talked about using gear
He thought he was
on a
on gear.
previous podcast. It almost feels that way. It almost feels like I'm like,
He texted me the
"Oh."
other day. He's like, I looked at my text. He's like, dude, I think I'm on gear by accident.
It feels that way. It literally feels like this type of training is just so systematic, and it makes perfect sense when you do it, and it's almost easier to go through once you understand it. It's easier to program now for me because I know exactly what I want out of every training session.
It's hard to program the other way now because it's like, oh, what do I do? Like, what am I trying to do here?
Yeah, like where does this fit? Like I'm just throwing exercises at a sheet of paper. And that's, I mean, I can still...
It's been very difficult.
We empathize. I'm sorry.
It's been very difficult to read articles and listen to YouTube videos because
The
it's just-
EMG
it's just-
activation of the hamstring.
it's just not the style. It's not what I use now. I used to read T Nation articles every single day, but now I'm like, this is great, but I'm gonna go to my functional seminars and just watch the lectures again
And
because it's just being more effective. You'll be more efficient with your training.
And it's more longevity, so you can train for longer, which will give you more results, period.
Also, way more important than we haven't previously mentioned here, which is I would say is, well, maybe it's more the case for powerlifters too, but even more for other sports. You spend way less time training your body, and you can spend way more time training your skills because your time in the gym gets shortened. And that gives you more time to train the skills. Even though you're going through an off season where you are building your body, you can still train your sports more, which means you get better quicker.
And the inputs, and we're not going to talk about the inputs because that would take way too long, but the inputs, so in the system, there's a total of 8 inputs, and each input focuses on a different thing. So when you're trying to achieve something, it is just so easy because you know exactly what input you can use to achieve that very thing. So if I want more muscle in my bicep, I know exactly what I'm going to do that. If I want more connective tissue on my elbow, I know exactly how to do that. If I want more space in my shoulder, I know exactly how to do that.
The hardest part of the job then becomes identifying exactly what you need.
Yeah.
That's at least for me.
I want to personally, with my own experience with this model of training, of internal strength model, I never thought that by acquiring more space, my 1 rep maxes will go up so much. because we're always taught that in order for you to get a more max strength, you have to train. You have to train strength. So you have to do 5x5, 4x4, 3x3, heavy singles with back offsets, and yeah, those things work. But a lot of people are missing out on creating more space, the hip, the spine, to increase their maxes. My example is when I started sumo deadlifting, my first max was 275 pounds. 275 for one rep, like grinder. I focused on increasing my hip mobility or my hip joint space internally and externally. And just by doing that, my max went up to 315 for 5 reps. Just creating more space.
You didn't train a sumo deadlift whatsoever.
Yeah, they not train a sumo deadlift whatsoever the whole time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to try one day and it just happened.
Yeah. Okay. Can you explain why having more space will allow you to do that?
Because it'll access more tissue that you were not able to access before.
So let's break this down so that people can let's get yeses from these answers, right? So like, will having more muscle give you the potential to be stronger?
Yes.
Okay. Will having more how would you get more muscle? One way is just training the standard way of training. But if you have more space, you have more access to more tissue, so you can build more muscle that you wouldn't have been able to build no matter how many sets you did of your, let's say, your bicep. You want a bigger bicep and a stronger bicep. If you only have 80% of the possible space in your elbow or your shoulder to build that bicep, then you will only have the potential to build 80% of your potential. If you gain access to 100% of that space, then now you have more tissue, more space in which you can build tissue. It's like, basically like, how big of a house can you build in 50 acres of land? 50 acres of a house. If you increase that space to 75, now you can build a bigger house. And with that bigger tissue, with that bigger muscle now, doesn't necessarily translate immediately to more strength,
but you can teach it to.
But you can teach it
in
to
a
be
specific
stronger.
movement too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is
faster.
basically what this model does for you.
It's almost like it pushes your genetic potential further than what we thought was possible.
Exactly.
Yeah, because what we thought was possible before was limited by things that are no longer limited by, which is your joint space,
Right.
and your connective tissue,
Yeah.
strength and size.
Yep. Yep.
Wrap it up.
We touched on a lot of things.
Yeah, that was a lot, and we already got we out. Cool. Do you guys want to add anything before we wrap things up? This was like a lot of information. This was great, and I'm gonna send this podcast to a lot of people.
Right. So the only thing I want to say is we are currently recording a lot of videos specifically so that we can
Teach this entire system to
teach
you guys.
this system and have people train appropriately the way that we want them to be able to train with this system that we just explained. We are in the process of recording more
Which,
and
by the
more
way, they will all be posted
on the fitness.
in the Fitness Uncovered YouTube channel for you guys to take a look at what each exercise does, why it does it, and how to do it for certain specific goals. We'll all post it here for you guys.
And also the way that we're recording them is we have one of us doing the exercise and the other one coaching it, because we want you guys to be able to see the amount of focus and effort that it requires and intensity that it requires to really hit the amount of stimulus that you want to create that adaptation, to create that muscle growth, to create that strength gain. So you will really see how intense and how much effort goes into it. And that is why the amount of training becomes shorter, because if you're giving that much effort, you don't need as much volume. So look forward to that.
Yeah. Sick podcast. That was awesome. All right. So if you want to see more of what all that looks like, all three of us are posting that pretty consistently on our Instagrams. Please plug yourselves.
So you can find me at AC_performstrong on Instagram. And yes, I've been posting a lot specifically about this internal strength model, how to use it, what exercises you might be wanting to start with.
At Lifting for the Better, both Instagram and TikTok, and liftingforthebetter.com.
Nick Barbosa, NB Performance Training on Instagram. I've been posting quite a bit of it as well. So yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys found it really, really valuable. There's a lot of valuable information here for many different people. And so, yeah, if you guys have any questions, please reach out to us on DMs. We'll be happy to help. We'll see you guys in the next episode soon.
Soon we'll start being consistent again.
Yeah. Peace.